Tap, tap, tap. Just checking the audio. Hey, the audio works. You know what else works? I work alone today. That's all right. Because it is a SideQuest Live coming at you on a beautiful Friday night here in the wonderful world of video games. I am alone right now. Let's see. It's JJ's birthday weekend, so he's out. Zach has no power. He's got like 5-foot diameter hailstones coming down, so he's out. Taylor is probably in the shower because there's a late shower dude, so he's out. I don't remember what Sam looks like or who he is. If I go down the list, I can name a bunch more folks. That's all right. Everybody's out. You're stuck with me today, but that's fine because we're going to talk about some wonderful things, lots of news happening this week. And so we're going to get into news and some of the stuff we've been playing. Boy, has it been a news week. It's weird to say because the E3 time frame is still about a month away, exactly a month away from when all the stuff is gonna pour out with the Xbox stuff, their showcase, the Summer Games Fest. I believe Ubisoft is going to have something they're planning. Square Enix might actually be planning something as a solo event. And there's a lot of stuff happening. And of course, Nintendo hasn't announced. They had their Indie Direct a couple days ago, day before. But they're going to have an event in the beginning of June too, from what I've been told. But and there's much stuff. Of course, a lot more things are happening. But I figure now's the time for things to be a little bit slower, right? But they're not. They're actually, things were kind of crazy this week. And it kind of, there's a lot of stuff I'll get to, but I think the biggest one for me is, let me share this news. Undoubtedly, something. The big delay, Starfield and Redfall delayed to 2023. Now, Redfall just had a general 2022 time frame, but man, they being Bethesda and Xbox were really pushing Starfield. Hey guys, this is the game. This is 2022's game. We have the date 11/11/22. It's the anniversary of Elder Scrolls 11 years ago or whatever that was. So let's talk more about the pizza. I don't know what the pizza I had for lunch. I will talk about the pizza I had for lunch in a second here. Pizza was better than this news. Starfield's delayed sometime in 23, the first half of 23, and you had folks kind of, or Bethesda and Microsoft both kind of said, listen, we want to make it the best game possible. I thought it was actually kind of interesting that Phil Spencer came out afterwards and sort of acknowledged that maybe they putting the date out on a specific time on a project this big might not have been the best idea. Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about the pizza. Give me a sec. Might not have been the best idea. It's not. It's never a great idea. And you can go the route of companies like this or situations like this in Cyberpunk. You guys remember Cyberpunk, that game? Where you give a date, then you're constantly delaying. And fans are getting pissed off or upset. Fans can actually lose. You're losing hype. You're losing hype. You're losing sort of that the snowball effect. You're losing a lot of fan sentiment starts to go away a little bit. So this is the first real delay of Starfield. So I'm very curious to see what happens here on out, because they did not announce a date. Thankfully, they just said right now we're aiming for the first half of 23. So there sounds like there may be, in my opinion, there may be the typical Bethesda bugs that are creeping up on this, but with a game of this scale, you're gonna see a lot more. I will say this though. We've been seeing delays nonstop over the last, even pre-COVID, right? The last several years, especially with this generation, as we try to get things to look more realistic, more fidelity, higher quality. We are seeing delay after delay after delay after delay, and again, it's you can put as much cool tech out there. Like the stuff that Unreal, I think a lot of you folks saw that really cool Tokyo subway Unreal demo that was somebody created, was floating around. But the bigger games get, the more fidelity, the more quality, the more HD 4K that we pump into it, the more strands of grass that they become more difficult to develop and take longer to develop. So I think delays are now a common occurrence, and almost the point where, Nintendo, at least, give them a slight bit of credit in this count, unless it's Zelda, they typically will give you a date, or Advance Wars, obviously. They'll give you a date and they're going to stick to it, because they tend to announce a game pretty close to when it's done, or when they're, in fact, a lot of their games are probably basically done and they're just waiting to pump them out. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Fire Emblem game has been completed for a while. Mario Strikers has been completed for a while. Those are both due in June. Xenoblade 3 has probably been completed for a while. And by a while, I mean, like, sort of feature complete, and the last maybe 3% with touching up the graphics on level 3. And some of the marketing aspects and things like that. But this is the world we live in. So they're saying first half of 23. We'll see how that goes. And then Redfall the same way. Again, a game we saw very little about thus far, but who knows? We'll see more when Microsoft has their big event in June, the non-E3 event. Hey, so pizza. Let me talk about this pizza, Mr. Hammer Barn. I had local Detroit. Well, we have a food truck here in the neighborhood, right? Let me hide this real quick. Food truck comes every Thursday. And we actually started during the pandemic. They had started doing the food trucks, which are a cool idea, because you brought restaurants to us, because restaurants were kind of closed, and a lot of restaurants actually opened up or added food trucks to their repertoire, and they were able to take the restaurant to all these other places, because you could at that time you could only fit so many people in a restaurant, so capacity was like 25%, which sorry, clearing my throat a lot tonight, which is actually not enough to make a restaurant business sustainable. If there's 25%, you have a lot of food management that you got to worry about. There's heating, there's cooling, there's marketing, there's all kinds of stuff. You essentially need something like, and I'm just speaking out of my butt right now, but 75% capacity for a restaurant to be pretty viable. Otherwise, you're really scaling back on the amount of food that you're selling, and the kinds of food you're selling, putting on your menu. But they have food trucks. Smart companies did food trucks that could, and we had the food truck come to our neighborhood every Thursday. Feel free to come on over in Michigan. And so yesterday's food truck was Detroit Panzerotti Pizza Company, which is a phenomenal local pizza company. Let's see if I can dig them up. Maybe I won't. They do Detroit style pizza, which, as you know, is a small pan pizza, deep-ish dish pizza, where you have the layer of the pizza dough. You typically will put the cheese on top, and then you'll put the sauce and the pepperonis and other toppings on top of that. But you have to cook it a certain way in a certain style of pan. So it's not like a lot of these other places who will just use a pizza pan or pizza, specific type of pizza tools. You have to use a very specific style of pizza development here, because the whole thing actually started with Detroit style pizza. At the plants, workers didn't have a lot of tools, didn't have any ovens in the area, so they kind of took whatever they had available and like oil pans and stuff, and just threw a bunch of ingredients in there and threw it under a car when they were building it, because the cars were that hot, and there you go, you got pizza. Yeah, in a roundabout way. Anyways, this pizza was so good, guys. I actually ate my daughter's pizza because she had leftovers and she had 4 slices out of her 6 leftover. I had the calzone yesterday. Today I ate her pizza. And long story short, oh man, food coma afterwards. Yeah, those that weighed a little heavy, especially all that cheese, but man, was it good. So worth it. So worth it. My wife even had her leftover pizza today, and it's very difficult to please my wife pizza wise, but even she said that pizza was terrific. So we'll be hitting up Detroit Panzerotti again. Might just have them come every week. Have them come every day. I need it. Other news. I hope that explains it to you. Hammer Barn. Other news that we're kind of tracking. I found this one interesting from a standpoint of we had heard about it. Your boy Jeff Grubb mentioned it before. Then it became real. EA Sports and FIFA are now officially calling it quits after this coming season. This is going to be the last EA Sports version of FIFA out there. EA Sports is going to do their own football club, but they're calling FC. Or, as you see, top right corner here, CF for some reason. EACF. EA Sports FC rolls off the tongue. It's beautiful. Because that license is over. They'll probably call it FC, like FC 22 or sorry, FC 24, FC 25. But it's that marriage is over. Obviously, FIFA has been having issues. The governing body of football, soccer in the world has been having issues, especially with the World Cup stuff because they want to do World Cup every other year, which is a real dumb idea. But so yeah, that partnership is over. However, EA is still going to make their EAFC game. They still have the UEFA license. For those people who don't know, that's the European kind of organizing committee for the sport. They have the license in the for like stuff in the US and the West and North America and South America and Asia and Middle East and Africa. So EA is not going to be hurting. It really is just the name FIFA and the World Cup. You ain't going to have the World Cup built into it. And maybe some of the national stuff might not really be in there either. So, but then FIFA came back and said, yeah, we're going to do our own game. We no longer want to do the license. Anyways, we're going to take the kids on the weekends because there are kids. And so they're going to make their own game. Which, to me, that basically means, 2K is going to come knocking. You're going to have FIFA 2K 24 coming out. Because that's what the PGA did with EA and with 2K and stuff. So anyways, there you go. That one's over. Goodbye to EA Sports' love affair with FIFA. Now it's just EAFC. EA Sports FC. Stupid. Come up with a better name. It's called Soccer 22. Dead Space Reboot, sorry about that, is arriving January 2023. That's where I was going to say. EA announced that the reboot of Dead Space. I love Dead Space. It's such an awesome series, right? Dead Space is so good that I remember when the game first launched, the original Dead Space, when that first launched, that it's weird. It was both freaky as well as kind of the really cool space opera stuff that was built in there. It was just, I don't know, it was just a really cool concept for a game. Had some like weirdly light RPG elements. But I always, love that aspect of the series. And I even love some of the weird crafting stuff in 2 and 3 and the weirdness of 3 with some of that co-op stuff they had going on. But hey, guess what? The series is coming back. And we knew that. We knew the reboot. They announced it last year. They showed some teasers out there. We still haven't seen like a real gameplay trailer. There it is, by the way. January 27th. Sorry, 27th, 2023. We're at the end of the month. We still haven't seen a lot of teasers out there, but we're going to see that relatively soon here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe during the Xbox press event at pseudo E3. But I'm excited. Bringing more Dead Space. It's funny how so little of this game that we've seen, and everybody's excited for it, which is just so weird. On that tip, EA did also say that they've got. Let's see if I read this correctly. They have a major IP that they've not disclosed and a remake planned for release in early 2023. So, they said they've got 4 undisclosed titles, so 4 titles that they haven't announced yet. They're scheduled for release in the 4th quarter, which is kind of the first quarter for them, because of how their timing sort of ends up with their financials, their fiscal year. You got major IP, so that could be this Dead Space or not. I'm not sure. Partner title, remake, and sports title. Now they know that EA Sports PGA Tour was announced. We know there's Dead Space. I guess it's not these games, but we do have Fallen Order 2, which, by the way, our boy Jeff Grubb says is it's going to be called Jedi Survivor. So Jeff Probst is going to be the lead character of that one. But the the other potentials, you get the partner titles, which could also be some of the indie stuff that did it. Hey, all right, Playlance says I'm not alone. I'm always alone, especially with Dead Space is going right over there. The partner title could be some of the cool indie stuff that they've been doing. That is always really neat. Some of the remake aspects, wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if it's what's it called? One of their classic games. Maybe they'll remake Mass Effect Andromeda. No, I don't know. I Road Rash. Do they own Road Rash? I don't know, but there's some cool ideas there, and a lot of folks were trying to come up with what they could be. I don't know. You guys, let me know what you think that the remake could potentially be. Racking my head for what classic EA games there were out there. I don't know. All I think about with EA right now is sports. Oh, and then the sports title, it could be a new UFC game. It does feel like it's been, even though there really just was one like last year, I think. But maybe that's it. I will also say that first quarter stuff is also really good for like baseball. Baseball games, that's typically when those launch, baseball and golf. And like I said, they announced PGA Sports, so it's not that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have a baseball game in the works, or maybe NCAA football related, because that series is coming back. They have announced that that's coming back too, so maybe we'll see. Actually, you know what? Maybe it is NCAA football. That could be kind of badass. You heard it here first. Speaking of other things out there, Ubisoft, Capcom, Sega, all of them are saying that they have tons of new games, unannounced games that are going to be launching between essentially the last quarter of this year, so the typical holiday shopping season, and the first quarter of next year. So there's a lot of unannounced games coming, which is kind of bonkers. Sega's planning a bunch of remakes and updates and sequels and stuff, they said. So I know some of that's probably some Sonic stuff, obviously, because Sonic is Sega and Sonic and all that kind of stuff right now. But I could see another Yakuza game show up, maybe another remake, maybe a compilation or something, like a true compilation. Panzer Dragoon, maybe do they still own Panzer Dragoon? Do they own Knights? Who knows? Ubisoft has they've actually confirmed that they've got the Skull and Bones what that game was called. Skull and Bones is coming out. Mario and Rabbids is coming out. The Avatar game is still supposedly coming out this year. So that's the end of that's this year that all those games are coming out. And so I think it's a pretty cool aspect. And even Capcom said that they've got multiple major new titles by March 31st, 2023, end of the next fiscal year. So, we already know they have like Street Fighter 6. It's kind of to be announced, but that's coming within the next year. They got the next gen versions of all those Resident Evil games. They got like the 2, 3, and 7 and whatever. They also got Resident Evil Reverse, Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreaker coming up, and then Exo Primal game too. But they've got a bunch that aren't announced, which is kind of cool. So we'll see. They have to have a new Mega Man game out, right? A Shinobi for Sega. That's a great idea. Shinobi would be awesome. That really would be good. Let's see here. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be a pretty packed schedule, even after stuff like Starfield is getting delayed. And by the way, that Xbox cupboard is kind of bare right now, but Altered Beast. Playland says Altered Beast. I like it. That Xbox cupboard is kind of bare right now, but reminder that it's only bare because they haven't announced a lot of the stuff, and they still have their big event coming in June, which I can guarantee you there will be a game announced that's going to be dropping this year. At least one game announced. I would be surprised if they have a couple games that they're gonna announce or show updates for that are going to be launching this year. And then Game Pass, they're going to line Game Pass. Sony is a mystery. They've I think someone made the joke that or the observation that Sony has released more games on Xbox than Xbox has released on Xbox in 2022, and it's going to end up that way because of like MLB The Show and whatever else is out there, which is crazy. But Sony's financials weren't all that beautiful either this time around. I think they mentioned that let's see if I have that information. They've shipped so far 19.3 PS5s. They missed their second year target by 3 million. Now, granted, you cannot find a PS5 on store shelves. When it's out there, it sells out. Boom. Good for Sony. They're selling hardware. They can't make hardware fast enough. But they also need games for that hardware, and they have to turn the ship away from that iceberg. When you got guys like good old Jim Ryan out there, not knowing when to keep quiet, or not knowing how to read the room, I should say. But they've got to talk more about some of these upcoming games that they have. I mean, Horizon, a lot of people spoke about that, but it came out at the exact same time as Elden Ring, which I don't want to say killed it, but it was a week before Elden Ring, and everybody was talking about Elden Ring. Then you had Gran Turismo, which a lot of folks forgot that Gran Turismo came out. Like, that showed up on the charts, did pretty well, and then it's completely disappeared. Nobody's talking about Gran Turismo, and that's typically a series that is super important for Sony. Now, they're still planning on stuff like God of War this year, but guess what? We haven't seen an update on that. We haven't seen gameplay. We haven't seen anything about God of War. We don't really know what else is coming from Sony this year, to be honest. It's another really weird year for some of these big companies. So, and again, Sony, 19.3 million PS5s, their second year target, missed the target by over 3 million. It's it didn't do as well as it should have. But hey, them's the ropes right now. Xbox is having a great great start to 2022. They're doing great numbers wise, sales wise of their console. Because you can find the Series S, which chipset wise is a lot easier to produce than the Series X. That's why you can't really find the Series X out there. The Series S is by far the prime seller right now for Xbox, which, again, wild to think about. Your top dog hardware, everybody talking about the Series X, isn't your top dog selling device anymore. It's that Series S, which is great for Microsoft, because it's actually great for gaming that you're getting. It's a digital only box, obviously, but you're getting companies to develop a product for the Series S, which isn't as powerful as the Series X, but it does mean that it's got more long-wise reach, I guess. Because if you're just designing for a really high-end device like the PS5, downgrading the PS4 it's a little bit more difficult. But if you're designing for your top platform like the Series S, then it's easier to go up, down, left, right, across generations a lot easier. But yeah. Nintendo had their financial came out. They had a great year again. They didn't sell as many Switches as they wanted to. Obviously, the chip shortage is hitting them too. I'm seeing, granted, I see Switches and I see Xbox Series S's in stores all the time now. They're all over the place. I don't see PS5s, but I see all the other consoles everywhere. Yeah, so Nintendo did have a good year in terms of sales. I'm trying to find some of that info because everybody was talking about it. They sold north of 20 million Switches in that time frame. Had phenomenal sales from that standpoint, and they've outsold the PS4 in the US, which I think the PS4 was at, in the US, I shouldn't say overall, right? PS4 is at like 117 million or 114 million. The Switch is at 107 million. So this year, worldwide, the Switch will surpass the PS4. And the Switch right now is I think in the US, the only consoles ahead of the Switch are the PS2, the Xbox 360, and the Wii. But the Switch will surpass the Wii and the 360. I don't know about the PS2, but Nintendo's still kind of being mum about their upcoming new console, which we all know they're working on. But they're relying on software at the moment. They announced that they've now made more. They have more software sales on the Switch this year, in this fiscal year, than ever before in Nintendo's history, which is wild to think. You had the Wii, which was like the hot console, right? The lowly Wii was the hot console for a while. More people are buying stuff on the Switch than they ever sold on the Wii. So that's great for Nintendo. I mean, obviously, that's not just their software. That's obviously, I believe, part of that is the cut that they get from third parties and indies and things like that. But that's pretty fantastic for Nintendo from being essentially the Switch was my Steam Deck before the Steam Deck, because I just would buy stuff that was always on sale because it'd be $1.99. I'm like, sweet, I don't care about this game about a jumping potato sack that I have to hop across lava and avoid the water for some reason, but it's 99 cents. I'll buy it. Cool. But this is a good question. Good comment by Playland. They have a big dilemma right now. How do you transit the Switch success to new platform? I will say the NES to Super NES was the first real big jump in console generations from one company. Yes, so Sega did the Master System to the Genesis. Nobody played. I know nobody played the Master System. Sega didn't start in the West until the Genesis. Sorry for anybody that thinks otherwise. But Nintendo had the NES. And then when they upgraded to the Super NES, a lot of parents were actually upset. They said, why can't I play my NES games on the Super NES? Or vice versa. Why can't I just play my Super NES games on the NES? Why don't the cartridges fit? That was the first dilemma that Nintendo faced at the time. Obviously, things have changed since then. The Super NES went on to become a phenomenal seller in its own right. Didn't sell as much as the NES because it had a shorter lifespan. Obviously, they transitioned quickly after that. There was you had the first PlayStation. You had Sega had the Saturn, I think, came out at that time, the 32X, and then Nintendo was even already pushing the N64. I think in the West, the Super NES arrived in 91, and then in 96 the N64 came out. So that was 5 years. Meanwhile, the original NES was like 84, 85, and lasted till 91. So it was like 6-7 years. Meanwhile, the Super NES was like 5 years. But Nintendo's still selling like hotcakes, and they're forecasting fewer sales again. Chip shortages are affecting everybody, even the lowly Switch. Although I think part of that is just they didn't have a lot of these giant mass appeal games over the last year. There was no Animal Crossing this year for Nintendo. Elden Ring was the Animal Crossing this year. I'm standing by those words. Elden Ring was the Animal Crossing for this year because everybody was talking about it. Everybody was playing at the same time. Sure, they did great numbers with Pokemon, but it was people who already had Switches bought the Pokemon games, and they made killer numbers with Pokemon. That was, you could say Elden Ring had almost Pokemon-like numbers, and Pokemon was on one console. Elden Ring was on like 5 different consoles. But the interesting thing about Nintendo is, we were talking in the Discord that Elden Ring is the COD killer, as Playland says. It surpassed Vanguard, Call of Duty Vanguard, in sales. So it's got that crown for the year. So that's kind of cool. I actually do appreciate that finally somebody else is ahead of Call of Duty. That number will flip back, mostly because it's Call of Duty and they go crazy with Call of Duty. Call of Duty fans and folks that Call of Duty sells every month. I feel like the Elden Ring stuff is going to start tapering off a lot more. But anyways, and Nintendo had some great financials. Lower, obviously, for people are out. Nobody's inside their house anymore. They're actually able to go outside. But I will say that one thing we had a good discussion on was Metroid Dread selling, I think they said 2.9 or something like that, 2.9 million copies or whatever it was. Yeah, 2.9 million copies. It's the number one Metroid game of all time. Sold more than any of the Prime games, any of the portable games, because the Game Boy and 3DS version sold more than the NES game and the Super NES game. It's bigger than all those. And yet some people, I'm not going to name names, but read our Discord. No. Some folks wondered, is it a disappointment because of the Switch effect? And no, it's not a disappointment. Those are Metroid, especially a 2D Metroid is a very niche game. I think the pricing shouldn't have been a full $60 if they wanted to sell more. I think you could bring that price down to $50. And then you'll be able to, my wife's giving me the eye right now to go start the fire pit. But I think going to 50 for a game like that, I think would have been good, but to sell more. But I actually think that game will sell a lot more this fall, oddly enough, this holiday season, because they may end up packaging it with something like the Switch OLED. Throw Metroid in there, and I think you will see a few more sales come out of that. But you need DLC. Give me some DLC for Metroid. Give me like Super Metroid DLC, or throw in like the first 3 Metroid games, or give me a Metroid Prime DLC or something. I don't know. You'll get a lot more people buying it. But I think those numbers are great. The real litmus test for Metroid is going to be Metroid Prime 4, because if that only sells like 3 million, then you're in trouble with that franchise. Metroid is B tier franchise sales wise at best. It's way lower than Kirby's already. The new Kirby game has already outsold Metroid Dread, and Kirby's been out for only a few weeks. In the first 2 weeks, it almost outsold it. So, ARMS, this game, which I love this amiibo, by the way, it's very cool. This game outsold Metroid Dread. Obviously Splatoon, even Link's Awakening, that kind of stuff. But Metroid is not as big of a IP as people think it is. I think Samus Aran is a phenomenal character, but Nintendo has never really marketed Metroid that way. But yeah, and then obviously, as Playland says, Kirby is the superest star. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is phenomenal. That game continued to surprise me well after I beat it, because there's a lot of end game stuff. It's very much Mario 3D World with Kirby. I think it's the best Kirby they made, but definitely play that game if you get a chance. Anyways, good stuff for them. Obviously, they got a little bit of work to do to understand what's going to their next console. I actually do think Nintendo's next console needs to come out firing, not just with core games, but like core level games. But you need to have some type of interesting gimmicky thing with the next Switch. And what I mean by that is Switch sales are slowing. You can buy them in store. Like I said, here we got the Switch, a bunch of Series S's. So give or take understanding what that means. But that comparison. But I believe the Switch did hit its peak. You either have to come out firing right now with a bunch of really cool kind of market expanding games, which I'll get into in a second, which stuff for more casual folks. Like Kirby was that project. You need something like a I'm not Kirby, sorry. Animal Crossing was that project. You need something like an Animal Crossing, but different. Maybe Tomodachi Life in some way. Maybe there's some online community. I don't want to say metaverse, but maybe there's some cool online community where you're always connected to people using your Mii's. And it sucks they abandoned the Mii, but essentially, you need to have that kind of community building aspect. And I think if you have something like that with Nintendo, then it can reignite the Switch because it has that Nintendo charm to it. But and I'll get into a game right now that's not going to do that. But yeah, that's how I think the only way you can keep the current Switch going with games. Otherwise, I do think you're going to need to come up with a little bit of a gimmick for the next Switch as you hand it over. It's going to be a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro or whatever it is, whatever they want to call it. The Switch 2023, because it's a big enough brand now. You're going to be using those carts. At least, hopefully, you'll be using those carts. Actually, I would be surprised if the next Switch maybe even use a different kind of cart, just so they can pack more visual depth and more memory and all that kind of stuff on there. Maybe these carts are only available to the next Switch with an adapter. Except digital games I will eat this hat. Digital games will definitely work on this next Switch, but yeah. Anyways, they got a good year ahead of them. They've already announced Bayonetta 3 still coming this year. They got Xenoblade. They got Splatoon. Nintendo has the strongest lineup right now. Exactly. Nintendo has the oh boy. Yeah, I'll put some salt on that thing. Nintendo has the best lineup right now of the year because they've had a lot of these games and concepts locked and loaded for a while. They have their same IP that they go back to, and obviously a Kirby isn't as intensive as a Starfield. It doesn't require thousands of developers. It requires 100 developers. I've seen the Kirby credits. So yeah, I think Nintendo's in a good spot right now when it comes to software because they have so much stuff coming out this year. And they got a big Pokemon game coming out this year, which is I'm going to guarantee right now that's going to be the highest selling Pokemon game of all time. Will be the new Pokemon game that comes out because it's going to do massive numbers for Nintendo. But again, it's a Pokemon game that is going to sell to Pokemon folks, and it's not going to bring new purchasers to the Switch. It's going to sell to the folks that are already there. You still need something new. So we'll see what Nintendo has to offer. They're going, like I said, they're going to do a direct. They just had their indie direct, some cool games, but they're going to do a full direct in June, or at least some type of event that showcases the rest of the games they're going to have this year, because they do have a couple that are unannounced that are on their way. So I believe there is an October game and a November game that have not been announced that are coming this year. And obviously Advanced Wars is still coming to at some point, but one of the games is a remake, which I think everyone pretty much already knows what that game is. Because Breath of the Wild 2 was going to be out this year and that got delayed. So you can imagine what that remake's going to be. Not confirmed, but it's very easy to port that sucker over. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about what I've been a little bit about what I've been playing. And it has been Nintendo. It has been on the Switch, and it is Nintendo Switch Sports. I've been playing the Switch Sports, the Switch Sports. Let me play the video here. A real interesting thing about Nintendo Switch Sports is that it's not a. God, let me here. I'm gonna throw the accolades trailer here so you guys can see. Or no, do they have the Switch Sports overview? I'm looking through Nintendo's YouTube page. I should have been prepared, but I'm Dolly, and I don't prepare very well. I mean, you guys already know that, so that's pretty good. pretty good to understand. Where are you? Switch Sports. Here we go. Overview trailer. I'm gonna play this sucker right now so you guys can see, and I can talk to you guys about this stuff. So Switch Sports obviously is the successor to Wii Sports, Wii Sports Resort, which Wii Sports Resort is pretty damn awesome because of all the different games it has on there. And then Wii Sports Club, which was on the Wii U. It was like the download-only version. Maybe they did a box version. I have no idea. But it was the first time that we got the Wii Sports games went to HD. You're seeing all the different games here, right? They got, let me pause it right now. Whoop. You got soccer. You got volleyball, badminton, bowling, chambara, which is swords, and tennis. And I'm going to explain these real quick. Maybe I'll show them in the order. I'm not sure. Bowling is bowling. Okay, here's tennis. All right. Oop. Get back here. I'll let it play. Why is this CC done? So chambara, bowling, blah, blah, blah. Sword fighting and bowling are and tennis are pretty obvious, right? They play exactly like the previous versions. Yeah, they have new Miis. I'm actually using my old Mii. The new Miis, they're called like sports avatar. I don't know, sportatars. I don't know what they're called. Nintendo gave them a name. And what it lets them do is it lets them, lets people kind of upgrade hair and faces and all that kind of stuff for just within this game through earning of like medals and points and stuff. So you earn medals and points or whatever. You earn medals by playing, sorry, you earn points by playing all the different games. And then you can rack a bunch of points and then trade those points in for clothing options, for hair, for whatever. You unlock these things all the time. And you can't really do that with the Miis because you can't have your Mii unlocked with a cool hairstyle in this game. And then that Mii has to be used in one of the other, like Mario Kart or whatever, because those games don't actually have the same type of Mii support. The Miis for this are strictly trapped to this. Oh, shit. Look who's joining. Taylor is joining. Taylor, I did say 8 o'clock, right?
You did.
Yeah. It's all good. We'll get into this real quick. Yeah, he says, oh, yeah, Taylor's here. I'm just talking about real quick about the Switch sports game that I'm playing. Playland brought up a good point about the avatar or the new Miis. They're not really new Miis because, like I said, they're characters that are strictly within this game. Because they're tied to this game. They're not tied to like a Mii.
Nintendo desperately needs a new Mii.
They do, but these aren't it because, again, this is strictly tied to this game. It's not like you can bring the characters from here into other games because they don't have the access to this game's data. You would have to redo the Mii system completely for Nintendo, which I think they need to do.
Mii's were the original metaverse when you really think about it.
I've kept my Mii from all the way through, buddy. Man, actually,
what's weird is that they didn't use it. Like, you can make a Mii on your Switch.
You can. You totally can. Yeah.
Yeah, you can make your profile picture and do all that shit.
It's difficult to find it though because you have to go into the settings. It's so dumb.
It's so weird. It's very bizarre to abandon it because it was such a hallmark of the Wii.
It really was.
And it was, I don't know. I mean, I felt like the Wii Maker was a huge, massive part.
My daughter still loves doing it for all the different games on the 3DS. Like she pop up on the 3DS and start doing those.
It's so bizarre that they did not keep it going.
I mean, I actually don't mind the design of this. Like Playland says, he kind of likes. He's warmed up to.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. It just sucks that we all know that it's never leaving this.
Exactly.
This is the ecosystem. The whole thing of this avatar. It will never leave Nintendo Switch Sports.
And it's funny because we were just talking. It was me talking to myself. But Playland brought up a point about Nintendo needs something to extend the life of the Switch. And I was kind of saying the same thing. The current Switch is dying out. You're not going to see those sales numbers like you did the last 2 years. The pandemic helped the Switch.
And we're not going to see it on any other console either, by the way.
No, that's correct. But you need the momentum of the Switch because even if a brand new 4K Switch came out tomorrow, it's not going to sell in the long term like the current Switch did because because you need a gimmick, you need something, and that happened.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way where we saw, I mean, the 3DS sold well. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't sell like the DS did, especially once the DS Lite came out, and became one of the best selling consoles of all time. Whatever comes out next for the Switch it's no longer filling a niche that doesn't exist.
Correct.
The Switch does that right now, or did it when it came out in 2016 or 2015, whichever year it was. What the Switch Pro or whatever they're going to call it is no longer going to do that because the Switch is already there. It is so similar to what happened when they released new 3DS into the 3DS ecosystem. It's going to be yes, lots of people that are enthusiasts are going to pick it up. People that are new, I mean, this is like suffering from success, right? Anybody that's new to the ecosystem is going to be like, yeah, of course, I'll buy the Switch Pro or the new Switch. Everybody else can be like, okay, what am I really getting by upgrading? And that's always going to be at the back end, or in the back of their mind.
Out of the 75 million 3DSs that were sold, only about 15 million were the new 3DS, new 3DS XL, new 2DS XL.
Which to some people might be like only 15 million, except it's across 4 SKUs.
Yeah, something crazy like that. Yeah.
Right, because you had new 3DS, new 3DS XL, new 2DS, new 2DS XL.
Yep.
So like 15 million across 4 SKUs when you had already done 60 million before that isn't a lot by comparison.
No. But no, I think like what Nintendo needs, and I kind of segued nicely into me talking about Switch Sports. I'm playing Switch Sports. It's fine. To quote my daughter, it's what it's. It is what it is.
It's what it's.
And so it's what it's. It's got the bowling, which is great. I still like the bowling. It doesn't have the 100-pin bowling, but it has kind of like wacky style bowling. It also has the online.
Why would you not put in 100-pin bowling?
It's gonna show up. I can almost guarantee you that this game is not complete because golf isn't even ready for it. Right? Golf is a download aspect. They put this game out because they needed something right now.
And they were getting too close to any other announcements.
And they could and they didn't want to put it out in the fall because it could cannibalize whatever they have going on in the fall as the full announcement. So yeah, this had to launch now, and I almost feel like they've had this sitting for a while, and they said let's just throw it out there. Let's quickly get it out there.
There's no way they had this sitting. It's so incomplete.
Correct. No, agreed. I'm sorry. let me rephrase that. They've had the idea for this simmering, but I think at the point they were like, let's just get it out there because we need to get this out there so that we can make space for the other stuff, whatever. But yeah, it's incomplete. It's missing the 100-pin bowling. I do freaking love the Survivor bowling or the bowling royale. That's pretty freaking fun.
Bowling royale makes a ton of sense in multiple ways.
It totally does, and it's very easy to get into, and it's fun to watch and play. And then surprising, the tennis is because if you're playing one-on-one, you still have 2 characters to control, which is really weird.
That's never good.
They've reduced the amount of like modes per game. So like tennis is only 2v2 right now, whether it's you and your doppelganger and you're both moving at the same time, or it's you and somebody else. I'm surprised they don't have a mini golf, like a true mini golf in this. That would have been fantastic. They don't have golf yet. Soccer, which we're looking at right here, soccer is actually kind of fun because it's a giant. It's Rocket League with a soccer ball, but it's waggle. Your control. It's not a Wii Sports motion style game where you're just using the analog stick to run around, adjust the camera, and the waggle is you either like go left and right or up and down to like kick which way. I don't like that. Again, I'm not a big fan of it, but it's surprisingly fun because the matches are only like 3 minutes long. there aren't a lot of badminton is okay. The Shambara is not that great, and volleyball is kind of bad. Out of all these games, I really think the only one that's like the only two that are good are to me soccer and bowling, and they're both kind of missing. Not by the way, not once have I worn the strap for the stupid soccer thing. Buy this digitally. You don't need the strap. You're never going to play the stupid single soccer special mode. They're not fun. But they're selling this game at $50 or $40, something like that, 40 or $50.
I'm telling you, it looks a whole lot like the tie-in game that never was to me.
It's this is going to be packed in. They're going to have a Switch SKU this year with this packed into it, and this will be what kind of pushes. They're going to say, check out the family fun. We're going to sell this, the relive those memories. Golf is in it. I already see the advertising, the marketing going on, but it's very incomplete. I do like the aspect. Online actually works really well, and it's actually super smooth at 60 frames per second.
Impossible.
I know it's impossible for Nintendo. They probably did develop it, but it's actually got it's almost got a Splatoon-ish art style to it and the character design here. I'm just gonna let this kind of play through as we're talking. But you can see the badminton there. And volleyball is just bad. It's very plain. I would have loved there to be a lot more. I like to unlock some of the outfits, but that's really the only advantage is just to unlock the outfits. Like playing online, the ranking stuff is or playing online is kind of I mean, you're playing people, which is great, but there's not like a true ranking system type of thing. It's just whatever. And this game literally it's what it's. And you're getting with this very plain Jane, nice art style, but other than that, I can't. I'm not recommending this to anybody. These should all be released as individual games you can download or as a part of the Switch Online service. Like that's where this should have been. They should have said, by the way, Bowling Royale is Switch Online. You just get it automatically. Come play Bowling Royale. That's where that would have completely pushed the Switch expansion pack type of thing. But whatever. That's what this game is. I do think Nintendo needs some type of massive social game where you're playing with and meeting other people online to capture what Animal Crossing did a couple years ago, because I think that's the only way to really. You need to go the social route with the Switch right now to get people to invest in it again and to buy more Switches. Like you want kids to have, you want a household to have 4 Switches, one for each family member. That's what you want. It's nice to all play off of one console with the removable controllers. I think Nintendo didn't realize I actually don't think Nintendo realized how popular Switch would become, because it was designed. You take the Switch with you, and 4 people can play anywhere you go. And that's like, oh crap! Everybody has bought the Switch for their house. We need to sell them a second Switch. Let's make the controllers non-removable. Oh crap! Now we need social games where
Nintendo constantly. I mean, like I don't think they thought the same thing when the Switch happened.
With the,
right?
With the
or I mean, sorry, when the Wii happened, and they were like, oh god, they like this.
Yeah, and
exactly. They never expected it.
We thought this was gonna be the Wii U part 2.
Right.
But anyway, they need something, and I think that's only going to happen with the next Switch. That's why I think the gimmick for the next Switch should be a real hard return back to the Me days of the Switch and Street Pass. But what have you been playing? I want to know what you've been playing, and then we can.
What I've been playing?
And I want to sign off here because I got a fire pit that I got to start up here in a minute.
I dipped into Rogue Legacy 2.
Ooh.
So Rogue Legacy 2 hit its 1.0. Did I already talk about Rogue Legacy 2?
You did, but I'll hear about it.
I did.
Now. Okay. Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's kind of just been more of that.
Okay.
It's still, dude, it's just really good.
Yeah.
It's just one of those games that will just keep you going. Mm-hmm. What else did I play? Did I talk about Dwarf Romantic at all?
You mentioned.
I don't think I did. So I bought Dorfromantic. I played that for a few hours, 3 hours to 4 hours ish. Um, and that's a really
What game is
cool.
that? What kind of game?
So it's a at its core, it's a puzzle game.
Okay.
And so you place tiles,
Hmm.
hexagonal tiles, and your goal is to keep placing tiles as long as you can. You get a set amount that you can place, and they're kind of like shuffled.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of random atmospheres that they can have on each side. Forest, town, stone, water, train tracks, stuff like that. And you basically get points by matching them on every side. And you do well enough, and then they'll give you more tiles to place. And so
Okay.
this is I was just stalling for you to bring up
Yeah,
the
you knew what I was
video.
doing.
And yeah, and then you just kind of go for as long as you can. That's the core. And then they
So
have some
there are the
challenge
tiles
rooms
there.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the good view. So you can see that stack on the bottom right side. You're
Okay, over
looking at all
here.
the
Yeah,
tiles
yeah.
that you have. You also kind of get these quest tiles where you have to connect X
Uh-huh.
exactly or X like greater than X tiles together. Where you want to get sometimes it's like you want exactly 34 forests.
Hmm.
And if you put more than 34 forests, you fail the quest.
Oh, wow.
And so like 14 plus you saw right there. So if you do more than 14 or more water, that's fine. But other times it'll be exactly 14, and if you put more than that, or if
Oh,
you try
cool.
and if you try and hook it up to an existing waterway that has more than 14 tiles associated with it, it will fail.
So that's really the puzzle aspect of the game. Oh, I love that
Exactly.
idea. That's such a cool mix.
And so by completing the quest, you get extra tiles into your kind of shuffle pile
Mm-hmm.
so that you can keep playing. And that's kind
Nice.
of like that's the core gameplay mechanic
Are you
is that feedback loop.
can I ask you a question? Are you playing this on your Steam Deck?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it plays fine on
I,
Steam
I've,
Deck?
I've I've played it on both.
Cool.
The Steam Deck was just like a little bit of like controller adjustment, like
That's to say,
realizing
understanding controller versus mouse and
exactly,
keyboard.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
exactly how it worked. But once I got it looks to me
Cool.
like they had controller mapping already in it.
Nice.
Because while it's not as good as it is, I mean, like mouse and keyboard is
Hmm.
just different. Clicking to pan and stuff like that is not to be
Yeah,
undersold
yeah.
on a game where you have a really large map. But the triggers zoom in and zoom out. Left stick moves the tile around. The biggest thing is a little bit of oddity with
So
wherever
cool.
the mouse cursor ends up. But the music is pure ambiance. The tiles are just like it looks good, and it's a fun game.
I had no idea what this game was until Quest, I think, posted about it first, and then all of a sudden,
I
or did
posted
you
and
do it?
added him about it,
Okay, all right, good, good, good. And it
and
looks
and
so
he, and of
cool.
course Zach was like, "Oh yeah, this one's been on my list."
Nice. Well, now it's actually on my list now too. So good choice in sharing that, Taylor. Rock and roll. How your? I have to ask you one last question. How your veggies doing?
So far, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm waiting on cucumbers to pop.
Nice,
They've
nice.
been really slow.
Yeah,
I
same with my
plant
parents. They're cucumbers too. Yeah.
I planted them at the same time as everything else. I got spinach, I got lettuce, I got beets,
Nice,
I got
nice.
Swiss chard, but cucumbers have not shown, unless one really managed to migrate, and it's not the weed that I think it is. But my wife
Nice.
and I we got a little impatient, so we started up the Arrow Garden again,
Oh, cool.
which
Okay.
is for those who don't know, a little bit of a hydroponics
Mm-hmm.
focused system. So we have a 6 pod Arrow Garden.
Cool.
We've had a basil, parsley, and mint that has been sitting in a drawer for like 3 years. So we're
And
like, all
it,
right, let's
let's do
let's
it.
fill it up. Let's fill it up. Let's see what happens, and at least grow something.
Sweet.
But yeah. But what about you?
I surprisingly the first I obviously planted everything into the new pots last weekend. Things were a little slow. We've had some weird weather shifts
The
here,
the
and
co-
so
the chill has been
yeah,
nagging
it
until, of
really
course,
yeah,
this week.
it literally went from like 0 to 80, or like freezing to eight. I think today was 86 or 87 degrees
Oh
here
my
in Michigan,
god,
and so that kind of stress on plants is not good. But
it's really
they're
not.
now finally, I think they finally taken to the pots, and I'm starting to see the growth come in. So I'll share pictures. I'll share pictures.
Yeah,
Next
I've got
episode of garden questing.
I got an old tomato pot that
Nice,
I'm going to plant some of your stuff in
cool.
and see. I'm going to see how it goes.
And they grow quick. Those suckers grow quick. Even in like
I'm
I know people
literally
who are
counting on it.
I know people who have not planted yet, as well, and I'm guaranteeing them that they're gonna have tomatoes by end of summer on these plants for sure. Giant ones by end of summer because they grow quick. So all right, that's it. Enough of this. Thank you for
Go
hopping
make
on
a
for a few
fire pit
minutes.
already.
That's what I'm doing. My wife is like looking at me through the window over here, so I'm gonna let you go. At Taylor Bliss at Taylor Bliss, at Dolly Demosky, at SideQuesting, SideQuesting TV, SideQuesting.com. Thank you,
That's it.
Playland. Thank you, Hammer Barn. Go follow him on Twitch. He's got some good stuff. And we'll see you all in the next episode of The Side Quest. Veggie questing.